Good morning. I thought I'd bring you the lovely bells again this week. It's become a real highlight of my stroll up to the park on a Sunday morning. Is to pass through the lovely little village green here and hear the bells ringing out. It's just it kind of makes you step back in time a little bit somehow with this frenetic pace. As I'm noticing, the roads are just crazy busy on a Sunday morning. It's like things don't stop, but then within this little green space with lots of lovely old houses and the lovely old church there with the bells, it's just like a little enclave of calm. So I always make sure that I walk up through here on a Sunday now, and this is where me and Mealy come for his walks during the week. It's a little sanctuary, and I hope you've all got something like that to keep you a bit sane. I was thinking this morning just about, we talk a lot about PTSD, and a lot of people have this. It's that post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was thinking about how actually humanity as a whole has TSD. We are within this traumatic stress disorder as almost a permanent state. We're born into it, and we've acclimatized and normalized this profoundly unnatural way of living, this disconnection that it's so profound. And because it's what we're born into, it's like anything, what you're born into is your normal. You really don't question it. You might, to be fair, you might have questions. Many of us always have, but it's in that sense of confused, it's kind of things are just the way they are and they don't seem to really make sense, but we still carry on. We still live our lives within this framework, and that's obviously, it's all being disrupted now. In a massive way, and I think what we're seeing play out is in the wider community and in the human collective is like the 5 stages of grief, I guess, which is something, I believe it was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a very famous psychiatrist from Germany many years ago, formulated it, within her work with people who were going through grief, that there were these stages that they would pass through, and I think we can see them playing out wherever we look, as more and more truth is revealed, as more things go absolutely insane, everything's thrown up in the air. You've got the first stage is denial, and boy have we seen that, and are we still seeing that denial that this is happening in the first place. And I think we've seen a great deal of people who do not want to admit that they've been fooled. I saw a little meme yesterday which said something along the lines of ignorance is not the not knowing, ignorance is knowing and choosing to not know, something like that. I'm very bad at clearly equating these things, but I think we see that very much. Prime example was this whole Dalai Lama debacle, which it does make you question. It makes me question: is this part of the design? Where there literally are no more heroes. Everybody is thrown under the bus. They're deliberately destroyed, really, and it's extremely traumatic for people who do hold these others in these places, you know, they're right up on these pedestals. I actually spent a very long time in Dharamsala, which is where that video was taken. I met the Dalai Lama many years ago. I've met him a couple of times actually. Had a blessing from him when I first went to India back in 2001. And yeah, he seemed a very beautiful man, radiated that compassion and very joyful energy. I look back now and I mean, I came to the conclusion quite a few years ago is something very amiss when looking at the people that he was mixing with and certain things that he'd said. I do wonder, is it even the same person? But we've seen anyway with this whole outrage, the people that just cannot accept it, who will make excuses for and try to explain away something that blatant in your face, because it's too much for them to process that, oh, what I've believed, something very precious to me, something very cherished, is actually not what I thought it was. And so, while there has rightfully so been a lot of outrage, there's also been, on the other side, people coming out to play this down and try and rationalise it, and oh, it's not what you think it is. So there you see it, you know, that's just an example of that kind of denial, and we see it with everything, with every new revelation, with everything that comes out. There will be the people who just cannot face it. They're stuck in that first stage, and it is grief when things are ripped away from you, things that you've always known, you've always counted on. This is why, as frustrating as it is, I think we can allow ourselves to feel a bit of compassion and a bit of patience, because it is this, oh, I was going to sit down on the bench here and it's really wet. I'll just keep strolling around. Yeah, you know, it is this whole psychological process, you know, and then we move into anger, and, you know, the anger can actually be really misdirected as well. You get people who are absolutely enraged that this is happening, and they do get it. But you can also get the people that kind of misdirect their anger, just anger that it's happening at all. And it's so easy to slip back into that denial. So there is no clean path from denial to acceptance. There can be this flitting, and many of us will know that from our own experiences of grief. You know, grief isn't just when you lose a person, when they pass on. Grief is when you lose anything at all, or perceive that you've lost it, that there's great change. So yeah, the anger, anger can be a great tool. That kind of clean anger that works as a catalyst, but when you're in grief, it can be very corrosive. It can be quite easy to get stuck there in that feeling of victimhood, and for people to lash out in the wrong direction, actually, because again, they don't want to know about it and they're angry about it. And you've got I believe if it's the 5 stages, this is where I get foggy on things: denial, anger, bargaining. And that's an interesting one, I think, within what's going on here. Like, they're just such huge revelations of things absolutely not being what they seem at all. Bargaining could take on so many different forms. You know, people bargaining en masse as more of a collective, bargaining with the powers that should not be, the obsoletes, you know, this trying to bargain our way out of this, which obviously still keeps them in that position of power. That's what struck me thinking about the bargaining aspect, and that's obviously something that we cannot be doing. it's again with that grief, it's that clinging on. And so I think we will be seeing that when people, not just as individuals, but as a collective, trying to bargain with the oppressors, really. So there isn't that kind of having to break completely free, because as much as we all say we want freedom, never having had it genuinely, it's quite a scary prospect unconsciously. And then after the bargaining, it's the depression, where it's all kind of sunk in, and again the feelings of helplessness, and just that heavy feeling of this is where you are and there's not really anything you can do about it. It's happened. And again, like I said, it's that flitting between all of those stages before moving on to acceptance. And I have to say, I do think we're a fair way off that right now as a collective. I don't think we're anywhere near the acceptance stage, which is when things radically change for everybody for the better, and that's when we see huge empowerment. It will be that acceptance of who we are, our role in all of this, and just not being in that stage of not being in grief any longer over it, having finally accepted it, that kind of radical acceptance. And that's when we really move on, and that's when we're fully in charge. But I think at the moment we're kind of seeing the it might be simplifying a bit, but those 5 stages of grief being played out within the collective. We see it in individuals, we see it in groups. So I think wherever you might be in that as well, just be kind to yourself. We're just in something so unbelievable, so incomprehensible. You look back to being a kid, and could you ever have imagined being in this situation, in these circumstances we find ourselves now? And we are still those kids at heart. So offer yourself that love and compassion that you would yourself as a child or anybody. And that's the thing, when we get really, really frustrated and pissed off, which is totally understandable, just seeing the behaviour of people around us who just seem to want to stay stuck in complete denial and anger, possibly misdirected. All of those stages that are smack more of victimhood. It's a huge thing that we're all going through here, and it serves us all if we can diffuse that kind of frustration and anger at things within ourselves, because we're only kind of feeding the beast otherwise. And we're all at such different stages in this. For those of us that have been awake, which I'm not that keen on that word, but have been aware, maybe we could say, of all this shit for years and years, we've been kind of prepared. I mean, that's not to say that we haven't really been through it, but we've been maybe more prepped for this, so we're a bit further along in things, a bit more proactive, a bit more accepting already. But most other people really have not had a clue, and they've had the biggest shock of their lives, and many aren't even at that stage yet. They're barely opening their eyes to this. So I think for all of our sakes, for all of our sanity, when we can bear this in mind, that it is this process and it does go on, people don't get stuck forever, but it can be quite, you know, a long process, but it is a process, it is moving along. Then, you know, we can just release a bit of that tension and anxiety about things and where they're heading. We are absolutely 100% going in the right direction. Don't worry about that. No matter what the optics are, no matter how bad things seem, we are on a trajectory, and that's that now. There is no going back. There is no going back. This is a one-way street, and it doesn't matter how they want to manipulate things to seem otherwise. We are absolutely heading in the right direction. They will throw the kitchen sink at us to try and derail, to demoralise, to just try and keep us down. It's not working. It's not working. There are more and more people waking up to this all the time. The conversations that I've had with people that, you know, just before to even say these things out loud in public, you'd be shot down in flames, have some very, very strange looks, but people are so much more open to this. People know on a deep level that there is something very wrong, and often these things are just an unconscious knowing, and you know, that's where we're at in humanity. So yeah, we have great reason to hope. We're really in that stage where it's just kind of hang in there, just hang in there, don't give up. Things will improve, but obviously things are going to be incredibly tumultuous, testing, hugely challenging, but just hang in there, just keep going. You know, there's a lot of people around us. We've found our tribes. We're not in the same situation that we were 3 years ago, feeling completely alone and isolated. Feels very different, and remember that. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking and get up to meet my lovely people, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day, evening, nighttime there in Oz, and lots of love to you. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Peace.